Doing here with this production of King Lear, which is our emblematic production for the Center for New Theater, is saying that as an arts institution, as a school of theater, we have an obligation to actually push the envelope of the traditions of our discipline.
Seminal works of theater and changes in the direction of theater have often been associated with the plays of Shakespeare. And we felt that it was important to take a major piece of work. It's a work that I have devoted 20 years of study to, and though I have directed an enormous number of productions of plays by Shakespeare, I've always waited to do King Lear until I felt that the circumstances were right. I do think it is the pinnacle of his achievement as a playwright.
This kind of work is not produced in the United States. You will see it here. You'll see productions that come into the Brooklyn Academy of Music. You'll see the shows that came to the Olympic Arts Festival here in Los Angeles or come to the Lincoln Center Festival in New York. But they have been produced elsewhere, and they are presented here as they tour. This show is actually created here. It's on that scale and on that scope. It is truly world-class work.
One of the real challenges of King Lear is how do you unleash the power of the work? What we've decided to do here is to literalize the journey of King Lear. So, from the very first moment of the piece, the audience begins a journey through a variety of spaces. And each one of those spaces begins to define a stage in Lear's downward journey. Okay, that's great. Now, here's the question for you. Mm-hmm. We've got the camera on Edmund. Mm-hmm. We have a roving camera, a live feed on her and her.
But you know, I just thought of another thing. What if we have the row of people standing here and we hang the monitors for them? One of the other kind of essential elements when we started working on the piece was this idea of movements, or almost like the piece was a symphony and had different segments to it. In each one of these movements, we sought to kind of create a very, very different landscape and create a very, very distinct, actually, stylistic choice that related specifically to that movement of the piece. And it doesn't divide along the lines of the acts of the play. It divides along the actual lines of Lear's movement through the play, his state of mind, if you will.
The production and the ideas for the production began to sweep away conventional theater spaces. We realized that this could not be contained within the parameters of space that one encounters in a normal theater environment. I do think this is one of the largest projects being produced anywhere in the world, both in terms of its physical resources, but also in terms of its vision. We're able to do this because we have a producer's perspective that is large enough to help us imagine this.
What CalArts has done is made first and foremost the notion of a community of artists, the core of our values. So the way we can have this model and this mission is by enticing artists at the top of their field to come and be involved in a training process, but also be involved in a creation process. So we have Travis Preston as our head of directing and director of the show, Fran Bennett, who is a great actress and who leads our training program in acting, playing King Lear, Joan MacIntosh, and Marisa Chibas, Mary Lou Rosato, who are master artists and master teachers. We have in our design program Chris Barreca, who's one of the premier designers of his generation in set design, Chris Akerlind in lighting design, Ellen McCartney in costume design, John Gottlieb in sound design, and we have an extraordinary technical department headed by Bill Balou with Michael Casselli, Mary Heilman, and we have visiting artists coming in who we think complement our core mission, Chris Kondek in video arts, and other actor-artists who are part of our company. We have gathered the artists who are capable of creating the kind of work that King Lear is.
We had to find a huge space, a massive space, that would also be able to allow this journey to take place. And in Los Angeles, it was a very difficult proposition, primarily because the film industry pays so much for locations that we were in a position where we were going to have a hard time competing for spaces. We discovered, very luckily discovered, this brewery space. It's 200 feet long, and it's roughly 65 feet wide. It's vast. We have essentially two spaces which we're able to reconfigure in a variety of ways to preserve the idea of an audience's journey through the entire piece. What you're seeing here is the principal space. It's the larger space. And it was constructed in 1903 by Thomas Edison and functioned as his principal factory space. Actually, they've just opened the doors that go right onto the 5 freeway. The presence of the freeway is one of the most exciting aspects of this particular location. It's not just the fact that it's a building which embodies so much of the energy of the early 20th century industrial power of the United States, but also the fact that it is now a building which is discarded on the side of a road, and that road is one of the principal thoroughfares of Los Angeles. The desire to cast an entirely female cast was, of course, related to the conventions of Shakespeare's time, in which all male casts performed these plays. So it does refer to that Renaissance convention. But it also has a thematic consideration, which is that a great deal of the piece relates to the suppression of the feminine. And therefore, we are referring to this thematic concern through the casting of women. Another added advantage to the female cast is that there is much less of a tendency to sentimentalize Lear's journey. There's no question that the personality of Lear is one that is extremely violent. This violence is often mitigated by the fact that elderly actors play the role and have a tendency to sentimentalize what happens to him.
It's something I wanted to do anyway. I wanted to play Lear. But it's such a challenge. It's by far the worst, the most difficult thing I think I've ever done, really. I played Othello, and I thought that was the most difficult thing I've ever done. But that was an emotional ride also. But this is an emotional and a tremendously intellectual ride, because I have to make sense out of why I'm giving away my kingdom. A real reason, and I don't know what that reason is yet. I don't know if I'll ever know that reason.
Certainly for myself, and I believe for a lot of the other actresses, we're really hungry to be able to do something like King Lear. These incredibly juicy male roles and being able to finally sink our teeth into them is delicious.
I found out that it was going to be all female, and immediately the role of Kent is the part that I've always wanted to play. Even playing Goneril, my sort of focus had always been off to the side watching Kent, because I knew that Kent presented a figure of absolute goodness and responsibility.
This King Lear could not be farther removed from that image of having to dress up and go and sit in a little dusty theater and watch something that's confined inside of a box.
The audience's journey begins when they get on the freeway, because our theater is located in an unusual place. And in fact, it isn't a theater at all. It's a factory space.
This place, I mean, this was the first time I walked into the brewery today. And my God, already I felt, yeah, this is really going to be an experience.
A workshop, which was great, when it was this close.
You know it's great. I mean, look at the height for projection. I think it's going to be great if you come into this space with white sand or you know, light sand, and that table is lit up. It's 50 foot. It's going 55 feet. We clearly are looking to create an event that is provocative, that is challenging, that is perhaps profoundly disturbing, because we are dealing with material that is absolutely disturbing in its implications for the whole movement of civilization.
These kinds of projects that I've described here in Lear do inform our larger culture and impact our larger culture. And to do it in Los Angeles and to have the economic structure, as I said, of a training institution be a subsidy to art making, I think is going to be critical to the opportunity for new companies to emerge.
When you do a piece like this, it inspires an enormous amount of humility in you. Mm-hmm. And when you realize how complicated it is, you realize how far beyond your own natural boundaries you have to go. We have the absolute conviction that this work will challenge and provoke our audience and create the context for creating more excitement in the theater of the future.